Hello there. Welcome to Intercept CSA, the podcast, where we break harmful silence with truth, healing, and protection, one conversation at a time. I'm Inifon Samson, your host and guide for this conversation. Thank you for joining me. If you have parents or people caring for children around you, do make an extra effort to have them listening. Place your devices beside them, invite them to lean in. Every bit of awareness counts for children. Now, a gentle reminder before we go any further. This conversation might be triggering. Remember to breathe, pause, and do what feels safe to you before you return. Will time heal? That's the question we often hear when someone is hurting, especially when the pain is as complex and hidden as child sexual abuse. But what if time doesn't just heal or not heal? What if time multiplies the pain? What if it deepens the silence, stretches the confusion, and adds more layers like shame, rejection, fear, and loss on top of the original wound? Thank you for joining us today and for coming into this space with your ears, your heart, and your compassion open. For this week's episode, I got to speak to someone I met at a conference a couple of months ago. I had been invited to speak at a women's conference in church where I spoke on child sexual abuse, specifically redefining protection, one of our Intercept modules. The result of that session was something extraordinary. I had women, people in their 40s and 50s, walk up to me and say, "This happened to me." And never in my life did I anticipate that. I always believed that one day the time would come, but I didn't think it would happen after just one speech. I thought it would take much longer before people that age, especially mothers, would feel safe enough to share. I mean, mothers carry so much, and most times their trauma gets buried in motherhood, hidden in the everyday responsibilities of parenting. Once someone becomes a mother, it can become even harder to seek help. There's that internal pressure. I have to be strong for everyone. So they suppress the vulnerability that might have allowed them to receive the help they need as human beings who are still navigating life and healing from pain. It was a powerful experience that day to have all these women walk up to me, even the ones who just looked me in the eyes and said, "Thank you." That was all they could say. And behind those words, "just thank you," you could feel the years, the pain, and the stories they've left untold. Today's story is one I've been entrusted with. And as always, not with the goal to sensationalize or dramatize, but to shed light on what so many survivors wish people understood, which is that CSA is not a one-time event, and neither is it always linear. It leaves aftershocks that can stretch into family, into identity, into love, into marriage, into faith, and into self-worth. And it can be tangled in many different overlapping realities. What you're about to hear is the true story of a woman I met recently. Someone who didn't just survive CSA, but survived family betrayal, abuse, emotional abandonment, spiritual confusion, and isolation, all while still learning to stand, love, and give. Her name is Mizoge, one of the people I met during that time, during the conference. The story you're about to hear is hers. Some names, dates, and locations have been changed to protect her privacy. And the spiritual reflections and practices you will hear later in the episode are drawn from her Catholic heritage. And before I read her story, I want you to hear something from her, a short voice note where she gives me permission to share this on her behalf. Because as heavy as this story is, she wants you to hear it. She wants it said, she wants it out. So here's her voice, and after that, I'll begin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Oke. I want to share my story, but I'm giving the coordinator permission. to share it on my behalf. It's so emotional to me saying it one on one, so I had to write it out for her to read because as I'm saying it, I will be so engrossed in tears and it's so strong for me to control. So I'm giving her the permission to share on my behalf. And I really want people to learn from my experience and be blessed. I really want people to understand the journey, understand the pain, the trauma, and the laughter at the end. It's so painful, but it's an experience. We learn by experiences. So please join me as you listen. Thank you.
I was born into a family of 3 boys and a girl. My parents were wealthy. Before I came, my dad had only a sister whom he cherished so much, and because of that, he prayed for a daughter too. That his sister actually went on to become a very prominent woman in this country. But for my dad, luck didn't shine on him as he expected. It regards his desire for a daughter. First child, boy. Second, boy. So he told my mom that if the next is a boy, she would go back to her father's house. And he meant it. My mom, a charismatic, kept praying for a miracle. She even had to buy girl clothes for the next baby in faith. It was so serious that my dad promised her that if it's a girl, he would take her to the UK to give birth. My mom refused to go for a scan, believing by faith that the baby she was carrying was a girl. So she convinced my dad, and he took her to the UK. But when she delivered and it was a boy, my dad left the labor room, told her to prepare a bag and to go back to her father's house. It took my mom's parents to convince him to change his mind, which he later did. After that one, my mom turned to prayer and made regular visits to Immaculate Mother of Mary Shrine to pray, even before she conceived. Immaculate Mother of Mary Shrine is a Catholic temple. Meanwhile, all her siblings, that is my mom's siblings, were well taken care of by my dad. He sponsored all those in school, and in business, he lifted all of them up and still maintained giving them monthly and weekly upkeep allowances. So when my mom got pregnant again, she was afraid, because this time, my dad gave her a strict warning that it has to be a girl. My mom doubled her prayers, especially in her rosary. One night, she said she was in a trance, and the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to her, carrying a child, and gave her. At the same moment, my dad, who was sleeping beside her, heaved a sigh of relief. And from that moment, she believed that it was a girl child this time and began to get stuff ready for a girl child and all that. Again, my dad took her to the UK. And when the doctor or nurse announced that it was a girl, my dad was so excited. So excited that he was the one who opted to cut the placenta, and he was granted. My dad was the happiest man on earth the day I was born, the 1st of June 1982. He began to spray money to whomever he saw. He bought gifts, bought boxes, etc. My mom gave me a name that meant God's time is the best. My dad gave me his mother's name, and he began to spread the news of my birth. He called my mom's siblings out of joy, saying that he now has a girl child, so everyone should not disturb him again, no, that he would dedicate all his money to his daughter. But my dad didn't actually stop. He still went ahead to take care of them till his death. Now, when my both parents died, as my mom's siblings, I thought they would continue with the love I thought they had for me, not knowing it was all a mirage. After my mom's death, I opted to stay with my mom's youngest sister, whom I was her little bride at her wedding. The wedding my parents sponsored from beginning to end, from furnishing the house to wedding gown, food, drinks, souvenirs, etc. I went to stay with her and her 3 little children then, and I met hell in disguise. Back at my own house with my parents, I was never allowed to cook because we had helps. So I didn't know how to cook or wash or do any house chores. Remember, my mom furnished my aunt's house after her wedding, made it comfortable, as if she knew I was going to stay there. But I was denied access to all of that. I was told I'll be the one that will wash her children's clothes, her husband's clothes, and our own every day. I was given my daily chores, and fetching water was a distance, but I was to fetch it morning and evening, carrying a long paint bucket. I thought it was a joke, because I hadn't done something like that before. Initially, I was told to sleep on the floor in the children's room, because the bed will not contain all of us. She later let me pass that day, and I slept on the children's bed with the 2 daughters. I should also mention that she was a leader in a church, a senior leader, while her husband was a floor member as of that time. Everyone calls her mommy. So morning came. This is the morning after the first night I spent at the house, and we went to the parlor to pray. The first thing she said was that I should sit on the floor and not enter the parlor unless I'm called to. I was by far the oldest of the children. I gave the first daughter about 5 to 6 years gap. I said, okay. That was when my moment of torture began. She would beat me at anything I do or say, especially as I was still new to house chores, let alone cooking or washing dishes. She dealt with me. She sent her children to a federal college as boarders, while I went to a government school on foot. Now this is where the drama began. My aunt leaves the house early for school, and from there fellowship and church activities. I became the mother of the house, housekeeper, cook, server, washer, everything. The husband started lusting over me. I didn't even know what was going on. I was still a virgin. My brothers loved me so much due to how my father treated me. My mom was not even into me because my dad was so crazy about me. So my mom never had my time nor valued me. It was all my dad. I never or can't remember what's like the warmth of a mother, nor the affection of a mom, stuff like that. Just my dad. So my uncle will come home and will engage me with gist. When I tell him about my chores, sometimes he will help me, especially with his own clothes. He'll wash and iron them, then tell his wife that I did them myself. The first private part I ever saw was his. And several times he would come touching me, and I would say, don't want to get pregnant, as I was taught then that if a man touches you, then you'll become pregnant. But he will say he needs a second wife, that my aunt is too busy to notice him. And besides, he needs more children, especially a boy child. I would cry while he's touching and playing with my breast, and I'm touching him, crying. He will calm me down, that he will help me do my chores and defend me against my aunt. And in the midst of all this drama, my chores were still increasing. Meanwhile, I grew up in a family where everything was done for me. And I thought when my parents died that going to my godmother's place would be ideal, but I was wrong. On one fateful day, my school mother came to find out why I had not been in school for some days and told my auntie I was naughty. When she left, my auntie, my mom's sister, beat the hell out of me, saying my birth brought sorrow to her and her other siblings after my dad announced to them that he won't give assistance to anyone again now that he has finally gotten a girl child. So that was when I knew that my offense was being a girl child whom my father loved so much, and now they were dead. All my mom's siblings hated me, and I was trying so hard to gain their love until that day. But when my parents were alive, they took care of me and showered me with love. Or would I say, fake love? I cried like never before, wishing my parents could just rise up and come take me away. I was abused day after day by my uncle. My aunt bruised me at any little mistake. Sometimes she beat me for nothing. The worst was that she would then send word across to the family that I'm wayward, that I keep late night, I party a lot, and I hang out with so many friends. But the truth was, I couldn't even leave the house because of the scars on my body. Plus, I was busy with chores that would keep me awake up till 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. I had only one pant. It was torn and I usually tie it to wear. I had only one cloth that was very long, which she gave me to wear always, except 2 gowns for church. Then there was no running water in the house. I had to wake up early to fetch water from a distance. It was so far and I would need to go for about 6 to 7 times on the road, a rocky road, carrying 20 liters of water on my head. But the funny thing is, all of that has made me stronger. I'm used to hard work and stress. And in all, I smile at situations and pray for more strength. So all this went by till one day, I took WAEC and JAM. Before then, she had asked me to wait for her daughter to finish school so that we both can go to university. I had no option. I had to wait. For context, her daughter is 6 years younger. So one fateful day, one of my brothers decided to visit unannounced, and she wasn't home yet. That was when he met me in the kitchen, still cleaning and eating crumbs left by her children. According to him, he was shocked to see me in such situation, dressed like that and eating crumbs. So he decided I would join him back to Abuja, no matter what. My aunt was like, they are spoiling me while she's training me. But if my brother dared to leave without me that day, I would have been skinned alive with beating. So that was how I left her house. Yet she had already sown the seed of discord and distrust about me to my brothers. She had said that I'm into men, I'm a party type, etc., just to justify her training. And well, it worked. I entered university and I opted to be far away from home because my brothers believed I was wayward. So I went to a university outside Abuja. After I left, my aunt kept hammering that my brother should give me out in marriage so that I don't bring shame to the family. I never had anyone to confide in, which made me so lonely. I had suitors, my father's friends' sons, and different people, but I wanted someone to grow with, someone to be my friend. In school, I was scared of men, and I had anger issues, but I was misunderstood. Some felt I was a lesbian. Some said I was too pampered. In fact, gist flew. Out of pressure, I said any man that asks for my hand in marriage, I'll give myself. Boom. My husband came. Showed me love, kindness, affection, and I fell for him. Despite all warnings about him, I saw marrying him as an escape route. And I married him. I married him after 8 months of knowing him, though it was a long-distance relationship. He was in Enugu and I was in Abuja. The marriage lasted for 10 years. I went through hello. That one na another gist. And this is where we took a break. The next part of this story was shared on another day. I got married to my husband out of frustration from my aunt. I wasn't ready. I wanted to go more into my discipline. I was studying hard. I enjoyed the course, but negative distractions were weighing me down. I didn't have friends. I was always on my own. I lived off campus and stayed in a compound of villagers where mostly families were staying. I just wanted to feel the warmth of being within a family setting. At a point, my family had to stop sending me allowance because my auntie kept saying people were telling her about my wayward life. But in the real sense, I was just being on my own, no friends or boyfriends. I was scared, feeling downcasted and rejected. I could only relate with the families around me. That's what gave me joy. I became a teacher, a business person selling hair attachment. I resold products. I did multiple jobs to survive in school then. I even wrote exams and assignments for students and got paid for it. Holidays, I couldn't go home. I would stay in school because then I was having men come to ask for my hand in marriage, which were my dad's friends from big places. I had prominent men, but I was looking for a man that I would grow with, like I said. I had guys in school too, but it was on a hello gist level. The allegations of lesbianism didn't stop, and so many things were said about me then, but I kept my cool. I cried many nights. I had many sleepless nights. I had many times I wished for death. I was lonely, hurt, frustrated, and worst of all, I rejected myself. I was summoned several times to come home that my auntie has found a man for me to marry, and I refused. A few times I went home, my brothers would torture me with words like wayward, pretender, side talks about how much of a disgrace I was, etc. It was terrible. Terrible that my own people saw me as an outcast just because someone injected it into their system. And nobody was interested in listening or investigating. So I went for a classmate's wedding in Aba, and we got to the venue earlier. There, my classmates were like, let's sit out at this place and wait for the reception to begin. In there, everyone ordered beer, alcohol. Only a few of us ordered for malt. And the man I later married was there. He paid for our drinks and more. In the course of us saying thank you, he said he did that for his wife. And everyone was like, who? Then he pointed at me. Everyone laughed and said, you will get bored. Okay, wait, they too boring and doesn't associate with people. That's who you want to marry. But what they didn't know was that I was suffering from hurt, sexual abuse, and family rejection. He insisted on getting my number, and we started having MTN calls. Though at first I was like, this one has finished. He kept on calling, and I finally picked up one of those nights, and it got interesting. I saw him as a route to leave my house and be happy, away from that world of frustration. And then maybe I could see if I could overcome the guilt of abuse. But I was wrong. I even got frustrated. And I encountered more abuse. In our marriage, my husband literally raped me. I was always crying during sex or sobbing. Yet I couldn't get pregnant. A few times I tried to beg him to take it easy with me. He didn't listen. He said he liked it rough. So he went on and on with bruises and all. And I couldn't speak. Because na me carry myself enter, thinking say na peace I go get, and run away from insults from my brothers and auntie. But I died a million times there in that house. I got him a job because I was still doing business of buying and selling in school too, which he stopped me from doing to focus on my studies now that he had a better job than I did. But what I didn't do was to stop, because I needed money to get things done for my personal use. I went from writing exams to writing projects. Even with the trauma at home, I didn't voice out. But don't judge me. Who will I voice out to? Everyone just knew I was married, though I carried marks of accident, and my walking step changed, which I told everyone was because I had miscarriages, which wasn't true. I never had a miscarriage. I just used that to cover up questions. It got to a point where I was advised to try another man, and I died to think about it. I had to pray and pray for God's help, and I joined a Christian fellowship. That place gave me solace and a platform of prayer. And that's when, during one of their prayer sessions, with the aid of adding fertility drugs to his food and water, I got pregnant after 7 years. Did I mention that on several occasions I opted for suicide, but somehow I was saved? I took about 50 tablets or so at once with tonic water, and I slept off and woke up. I cried and cried and wailed for death to come. I mixed concoctions and took, yet nothing happened. I opted for hanging myself, but I was always cut off by someone being around me for an assignment or a project or urgency. I also was accused by my in-laws that I was a witch because my husband said I would wake up in the middle of the night, carry a pillow, and be writing down things as if I was a secretary in the witchcraft kingdom. And those words spread until it entered the ears of one woman of God. She invited me to come spend the night with her, and I did. And as usual, I woke up and she gave me a book to write on. I wrote recipes of food and pastries, though majority were written on top of each other. So by morning, I saw her trying to separate it, and I opted to help out. And behold, I managed to write out the recipes, though some were spelt wrongly. And she told me it was me that wrote all of that in the middle of my sleep. She then taught me how to be a steward of my environment, so that when the time comes, I could learn to sit and jot down. That was how my baking business was born. I never went to any culinary school, but my products are very awesome. And that will be another day's testimony for you to listen to. So I took it. And my in-laws were like, it's a fake pregnancy and all that. Finally, I had a girl. And my husband began to say, why didn't I have a boy? Who will bear his name now that I have a girl child? He was so angry that he refused to take full responsibility for her. He didn't care much. He liked her, but not as a father figure. He then went on to have a child outside, and they were male children, which I've now learned after our divorce that those boys were not his. The girl and her boyfriend used him as a bait to travel out of the country, so that afterwards, once he is settled, he would come back and take them. His maltreatment was so fierce with his family's backing that I had to live with my daughter. Fast forward to today. It's been 4 years plus, and I joined Grace Family Commonwealth of Champions, a church here in Uyo, and listening to Father brought me out of guilt, anger, and self-hate to a place of peace and appreciation. Now I'm glad I left. My daughter is an amazing person. She's my sister and bestie. She's my joy, and we have grown to appreciate each other. We've grown to appreciate each moment we've shared. From starving to struggling to eating well now. We are everywhere together. We do almost everything together, unless she went to school. She goes with me to every outside job I have and brings me good fortune. I'm proud of her, and I'm proud to be her mother. During our conversation, I asked her, do your brothers now know what happened there? She said, nope, but they are realizing it was wrong to judge me from afar. Now that I'm divorced, they also blame me for not opening up earlier. They feel so sorry that I went through pain and was accused wrongly, which made me have a bad choice of marriage, all in the name of running away to have peace of mind, because they too were poisoned and they believed I was wayward. It was actually my ex-husband's testimony that made them sober. After she answered that, I asked her another question. Because in our earlier conversation, she had spoken about some memories that still brought her to tears, I asked her what part of her story still carries the most pain now. And she said, how it made me make a bad choice in marriage. How I never enjoyed my childhood. How I was accused wrongly of being wayward. How it affected my relationship with my only brothers. How it made my life lonely since childhood and has contributed to me being used to being alone. But I believe that experience has kept me for who I am now. I have helped so many young ladies and women to remove the garment of frustration and then move to smiles all over. The experience was painful, but it made me stronger. Now I'm divorced and I understand better about marriage than before. My ex-husband wants us back. I've already told him I have moved on. I'm happy now and I understand better now. I have forgiven and let go to enable my healing process go faster. It has been a journey of pain, but now all I can say is we should learn to take a step. Enjoy all you can, experience all you can, but understand the word of God is the key. Having God use you to bless others is a blessing. I'm planning to have an NGO channel for elderly people. The vision is to see them die happily and see their past as a phase they had to go through, as an experience. It's called My Origin, My Bond. You can check us out on Facebook. Thank you for listening to me. It feels good to say it all out. That was the end of our conversation. You've just listened to the final story for this final part of our Impact series. And if you're like me, you're still sitting with it. Maybe it has even pulled up some memories for you, things you forgot and things that still hurt. Like I said in my introduction to this story, this is not just a story about child sexual abuse. Because we are humans, no survivor really has a story about just sexual abuse. Like this story, often is also a story about betrayal, about rejection, about manipulation, about control, about religion, about silence, and about misunderstanding. As I read through Ms. Oge's letter, trying my best to communicate this with the dignity and strength I've seen her carry herself with, I hoped that this story would communicate a core truth we've attempted to pass on through this Impact series, which is that CSA is a deeply life-altering event, and we cannot afford silence or even to deal with disclosures lightly, because it doesn't end when the abuse stops. It carries on in the body, in relationships, in marriages, in the choices we make, the ones that we don't, and the truths we're unable to say out loud. What happened to Miss Oge didn't just take her childhood. It shaped her choices. It infected her choice of a partner. It defined how people saw her and how she saw herself. And long after the abuse ended, its residue remained. It remained in the kind of love that she tolerated. It remained in the kind of family she was left with. And it remained in the fact that it has taken an internal and an external battle to come back to herself. And in Ms. Oge's story, we see many things that are worth noting. We see, first of all, something called the longitudinal impact of child sexual abuse. Simply put, we see the impact of the unacknowledged trauma of child sexual abuse over a long period of time. We see her before secondary school. Even though her age then isn't mentioned, we know that before secondary school, a young girl from a wealthy family is still a child. We see her in university. We see her in marriage. We see a bit of her in parenting. So her journey takes us through a rare course. Many times we don't hear stories of people our age. By that time, a lot of people have had their pain minimized. People have told them to go above it, pray about it, and sometimes they just feel guilty that time hasn't healed them or that they are still stuck at the same old place. So through her story, we see the evolution of this pain over 3 decades. We also see how the death of protection or the protector that was her father opened the door of exploitation. And I would even consider it as a metaphor for our society, the reality of what happens when protectors are missing. We also see the grooming and exploitation of an uncle who models very harmful help. It doesn't change anything about the situation, but in a child's vulnerability, he has presented himself as a helper because he's washing his clothes himself and ironing them. Not that he's speaking up against the injustice meted out on a little girl or to a little girl, or rescuing her from his wife. We also see how early rejection birthed a lifelong craving for safety, a craving for a friend. We see how a child that was loved intensely by a father was punished by an entire system for being the girl he prayed for. We see how the absence of intervention, a safe space, or one safe person turned time into an incubator for more pain and more abuse. But in all of this too, we also see the miracle of return, of resilience, of rediscovery, of a woman and her daughter rebuilding what was denied them side by side. I can't even share some of the big leaps that she shared with me because they are still in the pipeline. But we see that too. So what do CSA survivors wish everyone understood? Every adult and child survivor wishes that you don't think that the answer is to just believe them. Belief alone is not sufficient. Every CSA survivor wishes you will see how far the pain of child sexual abuse goes, that you will understand what it stole beyond just the moment. You will understand that just because they are no longer talking about that doesn't mean that they've healed. That you will know that every time you avoid this conversation, the impact multiplies. And because of that, you will take action and commit towards child safety with a sense of urgency. As a person with an experience myself, I know that when survivors like Miss Oge speak, it's not just to revisit the past or release it. It's to interrupt what is still happening, to show us where the systems are still broken and where we must begin to repair. And sometimes too, it is to heal the betrayal of the little versions or the betrayal the little versions of themselves experienced by becoming the voices they needed. To you, Ms. Oge, thank you. Thank you for trusting us with your story. Thank you for trusting us with your resilience. What you've given us today is a mirror. You've shown us how time multiplies wounds. You've shown us what happens when pain is ignored. And you've shown us what happens when silence is forced or when healing is delayed. And you've also shown us what it means to rise, despite it all. You built warmth for your daughter when no one built it for you. You made bread out of sorrow. You turned the night into a recipe. And now you are not just surviving, you are serving, you are teaching, you are mothering, and you are healing. As an ode to you and to survivors everywhere, those mothering through pain, leading while limping, those who've carried entire lives on wounds they were never allowed to nurse or say out loud, we echo some of the words of Maya Angelou from her poem, Still I Rise, a personal favorite of mine. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries? You may shoot me with your words, you may cut me with your eyes, you may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. You rose, Oge. I read this because I wanted to honor your audacity to live. When I was reading out your letter, all that kept playing in my head was this poem. You're no longer just the daughter your father prayed for. You are the mother you needed, mothering yourself and your daughter into wholeness. For that, I honor you. And we carry your story gently, and we'll let it move us into action. We'll let it do what you meant it for, which is to awaken others. For this episode's call to action, if this story moves something in you, don't just let it stop at reflection. Let it lead you to create a space for the conversations that have not happened in your home, conversations that have not happened in your relationships, or even within yourself. You don't have to tell your whole story to anyone. You also don't have to force anyone else to tell theirs. But you can say something like, I listened to something today that made me realize how much we don't talk about certain things. You could also say, I want us to be the kind of home where hard things can be said out loud. You can say it to your teens, children. You can say it to a spouse, because we're talking about both survivors, adult and children right now. You can also tell a child, if there's ever anything you want to talk to me about, I hope that you know I'm here. Any way that you have observed that your children understand presence, use that. Start where you are. Like I said, it could be with a spouse, it could be with a parent, it could be with your child in an age-appropriate way, or even just with yourself in a journal as a first step. But do not let this story remain in your mind. Let it cause and shift something within you, and let it shift something outside of you. Thank you to everyone listening for walking this impact series with us. Thank you for listening with your whole heart, and thank you for standing with survivors. Now that we've learned of the layers of impacts, the gaps, who a child is, and all the build-ups we've done up till this point, we are ready for the next essential conversation. In our upcoming episodes, we'll be exploring disclosure and response. Because if silence multiplies harm, then healing begins with response. Over the next few weeks, we'll talk about how children and adult survivors disclose, what it means to be a safe place, how to respond with care, and how each of us can change the response culture around child sexual abuse. Remember, we're still inviting volunteers to join our mission at Intercept CSA. You'll find the link to join us in the description. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Intercept CSA, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast so you can get notifications and be one of our first listeners. Remember, together we can intercept child sexual abuse and protect the children we all care about. Together we can intercept for future. Until next week, see you.